Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Magic Mike's Last Dance. So, as always, I'm going to give you good, the bad, and the furry. To start off the furry, there isn't any. Moving on to the good and the bad. So, this movie is starring Channing Tatum and Salma Hayek, and nobody else from the first movie or the second movie. Just throwing that out there. So, this movie it's set roughly current time period, and he meets Selma Hayek's character, and she pays him to give him a dance, and then she's like, I love your dancing, I'm going to take you to London. And he's like, why? And she's like, you'll find out. And so he goes there, and then turns out that he's going to be in charge of, to anybody who has any idea of how, what skills she sees from Mike and what skills she might want to employ Mike for. Shockingly, I guess spoiler alert if you're dumb, which I guess he is, he's going to be the director of a performance piece at a theater. So yeah, she's like, I loved your dancing, so make a performance. And it's just dumb. It's just very, very dumb. It was not like watching a Magic Mike movie, in my opinion. It was like watching a Step Up movie. And don't get me wrong, I like Step Up movies. Step Up 2, awesome, awesome movie. But Magic Mike movies are supposed to be about strippers, or I'm sorry, male entertainers. But this one, it's like they were like, hey, let's do Step Up dances on this stage, but add in a few more extra hip thrusts. And it's just like, why? How? That's not what this is about. And then also, I believe that the director or whatever of the first movie came back for the third one. So we are once again back in the drama land. So the first one was all about him trying to make it and yada yada. And in this one, so spoiler alert, I'm gonna just start spoiling things. Just go with me on this. So at the end of the second one, at the end of the first one, he's like, I'm going to go start my business. In the second one, he's struggling, but he is succeeding, and then he goes on vacation with his old buddies, and it's a fun time. So the first one is struggle busting and sadness and drama, and then the second one is like fun times. This one is back to being drama and sadness, because in this, Mike's business went under, and it also sounds like he borrowed some money from his friends, which, by the way, the only time we at all get to see his friends is on a very shitty, grainy, I don't know if they're just trying to make a statement about how shitty video calls are, but a 4-way video call with his old buddies of, Tarzan and the, just the other guys from the first one, Alcide, and it's just like, that is it. That is the only time you even see them at all. And so there's no big reveal of hey, he brought in his friends just for this one performance, and that was the big trick or the big surprise. Nope. Don't bother being in that anticipation, because that ain't gonna be happening. And it was just why is he so dumb to not realize what he is going to go do? And then, just also spoiler for how many dances Mike did. He did the one with Salma Hayek, which, it didn't have the feeling of the other ones from the first two movies. The first two movies, the dances were at least fun or provocative or whatever. This one, it was like dry humping, basically. It was like, hey, we're gonna do all the Hollywood sex positions and movements, but we're just gonna be clothed because we're Hollywood stars. Sure, whatever, man. But they just so that's the dance that he did there. And then he also, when he was having his guys in the prep for the performance, one of them did a decently good a bit of a striptease thing, I would say a quarter of a dance, and he's like, yeah, no, that's good, but you need to feel it a bit more. And so then he demonstrates by doing roughly the same thing, but better, because it's Magic Mike. Again, quarter of a dance there. And then at the very end, during their performance, he does a water dance. There's rain coming down, and he and the other chick are sliding around and everything else. And don't get me wrong, it looked pretty decent, and they did use the slidiness of sliding around in water pretty well. But it's just because of how much of this movie felt like a Step Up movie with some extra hip thrusts. This moment felt like they were just riffing off of Step Up's 2 end dance that had all the water in it. And I kind of like the Step Up 2 one better because I think it was more fun than this one. And also, they did this whole, like, dry humping dance with Mike. Oh, by the way, so that's the only dance. Those are the only dances that Mike does. The rest of them are other, like, group things. But, so you see this one with Salma Hayek, and it's like, okay, you do this amazing dance, and she's always, like, having creative inputs on this thing. You would think at some point they would be like, hey, like, why doesn't she just do that dance with Mike or do some type of dance with Mike? But nope, she doesn't do any more dancing. And speaking of Salma Hayek, to put my opinion in perspective, I generally don't like Salma Hayek. Nothing against her as a person. I have no idea how she is as an actual person, and I don't give a fuck. But in movies, I generally don't like her because it seems like everybody is just like, she's always so amazing in it, and I don't see it. She seems to me, in the movies that I've seen her in, she always plays the slightly unhinged, loud, annoying as fuck character. Like, and not in a fun way. Like, there is loud characters that are fun, there are slightly unhinged characters that are fun, but she is just bitchy, unhinged, like, person, and I don't understand why she does that or why people like that. And I didn't get any chemistry between her and Mike. And throughout the film, I guess they were supposedly building a relationship, but I didn't see any reason for him to like her, or like why at the end he's just like, oh, I love you. And it's like, why? There was nothing in this movie that showed me that you would love her. And it just didn't make any sense. It's just that it confuses me. And not in a fun way. It was dumb. It tried to make me care about this, and I didn't care about any of the characters. And all the backup dancers, like, there was this really long sequence, at least it felt long, of them finding dancers by, like, people auditioning and doing cool dances. There's a chick on a chair, and they're supposed to dance on her, but most of the time they're just doing cool dance moves near her. Again, not what you would imagine with a striptease, but whatever. Or they find them on the street doing cool dances. And again, they are cool dances. But we've seen cool dances in the Step Up movies. We come to Magic Mike movies for the stripteasing, not for just the dancing. You know what I mean? And this just had cool dancers. And so they take all this time, hand them cards and everything else. I'm pretty sure we didn't hear a single word from any of those dancers, which is probably why at the end they're credited as just the dancers, and with their names like name, without the like name and then the next name. No, it's just so I didn't care about any of the dancers. They didn't do like really good stripteasey things, and then so their whole thing is that they're doing this in a historic theater, and the historic theater is historic, so the husband that actually owns the money from Salma Hayek is trying to shut it down because she's just kind of doing it to be an asshole to him. So they try and shut it down, and so they're going to do it anyway, but like it's a historic theater, so they're not allowed to do bad things in it. So they get the like council woman and council person type people to, like, they try and convince them to not do that, like to not shut it down because of like, oh, your stage is too high type of bullshit. But they kind of don't succeed, like it's going to get shut down, but on Monday, so they do the performance on Sunday, and then like those council people are still there, and I don't believe for a second that any of those council peoples would have gotten up, especially on the triple chair dance, where it was like one person on a chair, one person on a chair, one person on a chair, with like a dancer on each of them. There is absolutely no way that you were going to convince me, especially with what you showed me in the movie, that any of those people would be willing to get on stage with strip dancers to have them dance all over them and do all the things that they did in that dance. Like, no, that's just not believable. And this is set in a theater, and their whole shtick was going to be starting off with the boring, like, yes, Mrs. Tuppet, we should do that thing, but no, I need to marry the... Like, the just fucking classic plays that you would imagine in a historic theater in London. But then they're just going to switch over to this strip show, like, right, like, in the, after the first scene or two, and just be like, boom, here we are, yeah, that'll throw people off, it'll be great. Cool, but when you go to one of these type of shows, you're probably going to have a fair number of males attending this with their significant others that are probably more often than not going to these things female. Like, the target audience for this type of bullshit show is going to be females. But the audience that you are going to have attend is going to be male and female heterosexuals. So you only have one female dancer, and she's just for that one song with Channing Tatum. All the rest of the time, the female is just doing the MC thing. She doesn't even do a dance. So I don't understand how you think that would be popular. Like, I'm sure that a bunch of stodgy old fuckers in London going to see a play are going to be totally comfortable with their wives drooling all over a bunch of half-naked dudes. And I'm sure that they would definitely not be like, oh, I can't be enjoying this. Like, no, they're not going to... It just doesn't make any sense. If you were actually going to do this, you would probably try and have male and female strippers to at least get the other side of the audience engaged too. But you're not, because none of this shit makes sense. None of this movie makes any sense. The characterization, like the actual interaction between Channing Tatum and Crazy Bitch didn't make no sense. They didn't have any chemistry, and I didn't care about anything that happened in this, and I didn't like it because much like with how the last movie for Rambo, which we're going to pretend still doesn't exist, and Matrix 4, which again we're going to pretend doesn't exist, you have the end of the movie before the end of those movies, like with Rambo and with Matrix 3, and they had happy endings. Like, you had a satisfying ending with those. And then they added these sequels that totally fucked that up. So at the end of 2, his business is struggling, but succeeding, and is on its way up. They're about to open a retail space. And in this one, they're like, oh, by the way, he had to borrow money from friends, and his business closed. Yep, that sucks. So now he's bartending as a 40-year-old. Success, happiness, yay! Like, no. And lastly, they had the daughter of Selma Hayek, who we don't meet for the first hour or some shit. They had her doing various pretentious narration of things. It's like she thought she was in a National Geographic documentary and wanted to do voiceovers explaining what was happening on screen. And it's like, I don't give a fuck about whatever you're saying. I can understand from watching the movie, like, your voiceover shit is not helping. It's making me feel like you're a pretentious asshole because you're a pretentious asshole. And speaking of things like that, you have the narration going on, which you didn't need, and there's just the asshole butler, which didn't go anywhere, and yeah, so there's probably other stuff that I'm forgetting, but that's all I have for this one. 2 thumbs down. Just pretend that this movie doesn't exist because it messes up the fun of the second one and the storyline of the first one. So just pretend that this movie doesn't exist. 2 thumbs down. That's all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the next one. Bye.